you've recently spoken about the idea of Europe's strategic autonomy, or maybe at least the need to have that strategic autonomy. What does this mean to you in relation to global challenges that we have, such as development and climate?
Well, I see that on the political level, the European Union must urgently find its place in a world where tectonic changes are visible and where it is necessary to protect a place for the Europeans in that context. Everybody is talking about the US and China only, and that doesn't really meet the target. The Europeans will not play a role in this context if each and every member state tries to go it alone. Therefore, there is pressure on European unity more than ever. And of course, climate and development are two key areas, I think, where the Europeans, to put it mildly, still have a chance. And this is why we are, as EU Bank, are so forcefully pursuing our role as the EU Climate Bank.
Okay, thank you. And one of the things you've done, you ended investment for fossil fuel related projects last year, and that was a highly ambitious step. But how can EIB leadership be genuinely transformative when it comes to Paris alignment and delivering the low carbon future?
Well, first of all, I would say climate change may not feel like the top priority anymore now under COVID conditions, but the climate emergency and the environmental emergency are two challenges that won't wait for us. Now, we have taken a big step forward last year at the United Nations and later in our decisions on fossil fuel financing. First of all, it is necessary that we live up to our own criteria and ambitions. And therefore, we must make sure that what we have promised, that here we are going to be Paris aligned over the entire portfolio at the end of the year, that we are going to be helpful to arrive at least 50% of climate neutrality by 2025. And you will trigger with our means at least $1 trillion of additional investments in the field of climate and environment. This is something that is a huge challenge for our institution, but I think if we can meet this challenge, we can strengthen our position in the global context, and we will be probably the market leader.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned COVID. What do you think COVID has highlighted in terms of development needs for the EIB and for the international community?
Well, COVID has so far already taught us more than I've ever would have expected. And this is partly horrifying, partly encouraging to continue on our way towards climate neutrality, but also on the way towards being aware that the COVID crisis will not only hit the industrialized countries, it has already hit many, many developing countries. And once this virus will move into the suburbs of some of these cities, it will be a disaster. And therefore, we need to be prepared and we need to be helpful. And I think Europe has a big role to play there. And I'm very happy that together with the European Commission and other actors on the European level, we are on that trail. We must turn this into a development challenge, and we must put development on a higher level and in a more strategic dimension.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, how do you think? I mean, you've said a lot previously about the importance of getting the private sector involved. How do you think the MDBs and the public sector in general can do better in working with the private sector to raise finance and to incentivize companies themselves to make the green transition?
Well, one should not be too shy, because when we entered into the market with the first green bonds ever in 2007, we couldn't believe that it would be so successful within a few years. So you need to have some courage and some good ideas, and you must provide reassurances to your investors. What counts for us is an institution that depends upon the investor support, upon the trust of the investors to give us, I don't know, 60 to 100 billion euros per year in bond sales, is that they know what they get from us. And when they buy a green bond, they must know what is painted green must contain green. And this brings us to the necessity to avoid any kind of greenwashing and cheating like that. And this is true for other objectives which you're now pursuing with bond issuance in the pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. We have begun with water. We have entered now the field of health. We have field of education, and we will further continue that. But you need to give reassurances that the people who give their money into such a bond can be sure that this bond is used for exactly the purpose for which it has been named. And this is easier said than done. We know this from the experience of the green bond, but it can be done. And I'm sure that there will be ample opportunity among investors around the world to put some parts of their assets, of their wealth, into objectives we are pursuing with the Sustainable Development Goals. But they must be reassured that the projects are economically viable and sustainable, and that the money is going into the direction where we promised them to bring it to.